We just returned from executive session to discuss issues related to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. And this is in reference to the Medfield Teachers Association Unit A and B, AFL-CIO custodians, cafeteria workers, and secretaries, and to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for non-union personnel contract negotiations. And that would be for the superintendent. So I will now call to order this February 10th, 2022 regular session of the Medfield School Committee, beginning with a roll call.
Leah Brim here.
Tonight here.
Again, Glenn here.
And Jessica Riley here. So this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the Medfield TV YouTube channel. So first thing we'll do is public input. Citizens at this time may address the committee on items of school business not on this evening's agenda. The committee will take such items under advisement without action or discussion at this time at the meeting in which the item is presented. All comments will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. So please state your name and address for the public record. And written comments, as always, are more than welcome through our email address at scchair, school committee chair, @medfield.net. All right, so do I have public comment on issues not on the agenda tonight? Please approach. And you'll have 3 minutes. Give your name and your address for the public record.
Hey, everybody. Rick Fink, 8 Donnelly Drive. I want to address some of the ways you've been communicating with the community at large. I understand reputation precedes me. I used to participate on our community Facebook groups as a disruptor of what I always considered nothing more than unfriendly, entitled disputes with no result. However, I left that group over a year ago because it wasn't just rude fighting with each other. It wasn't just rude people fighting with each other. I saw a community dealing with trauma to some degree. Maybe it was the pandemic, mandates, could have been a contentious presidential administration. So I stopped. That said, I want to address some things I saw in 2021 that I don't want to witness again in 2022. You have a greater responsibility to this community than running our schools. You're supposed to be shining examples of proper civic engagement, and I believe there's room for improvement in this area. To many, the optics suggest this school board operates with a sense of moral and intellectual superiority. This is evident in your contentious Facebook posts that run longer than CVS receipts. This is evident when the chair tells a member of the Board of Health to, quote, stay in your lane after they addressed a mental health issue regarding our students in our schools in a Board of Health meeting. Jessica, are you
I don't, this is just public comment.
Okay, well, everyone's giving me eye contact.
I'm sorry, I'm literally writing down what you're saying.
Oh, I can give this to you right after.
Yeah.
And it's certainly evident when the entire school committee that preaches diversity, equity, and inclusion publicly supports and campaigns for the incumbents. No other board or committee in this town does that. There's your precedent, so please stop doing it. It's gotten nasty in this town. The bar is so low that now we see a trickle-down effect. A vulgar altercation at the transfer station over your new school proposal, a candidate being harassed by a PTO member while campaigning on a Zoom call. The same candidate also endured people driving by her house shouting nonsense at her. Speaking personally, a high school teacher berated me for criticizing the Massachusetts Teachers Union. Then her husband called me a dumbass. I think that's shocking that he was able to drag his knuckles across the keyboard and spell that word correctly. We have to do better. Let's start with focusing on all the things we can agree on. How about reclaiming our position as a top-ranked school? Eradicating bullying in our schools, better addressing substance abuse challenges, and improve the mental support of our children.
Yes.
Get a handle on these things, and I believe you'll be a better supported board with this community. Thank you.
Do I have another public comment on something that is not on the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Potts, 7 First Street.
Hi, Chris.
I just also wanted to reiterate my comments at the last school committee meeting that were, from what I can tell, the audio at the hearing was terrible, and it was very difficult for anybody to hear what was said. I think it's very important that as a community where we have policies that represent basically the Constitution for our school, that the community is actually engaged in looking at those policies with enough notice to be able to comment and to be able to actually have the information at hand with red line policies that they can actually see the changes that were made before you even vote on those. And there are significant policies that actually steal community engagement from our town and our parents, our guardians. And we cannot do the policy reviews like we have. And you should have tackled the actual policy that deals with policy review first before you dealt with any of the other policies going forward. And I would ask you just to hold off on voting on some of the policies tonight that I know that have been communicated with you. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? So we are going to, with the committee's permission, what I'd like to do is, if you would be amenable, I'd like to bring the DESE mask update and COVID-19 updates to the front of the agenda. And I will probably ask the student advisory group to just kind of give us a general idea about how students are thinking about that as well. But Dr. Morrison, would that be okay with the rest of the committee? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Dr. Morrison, would you like to go ahead?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you know, the Commissioner of Education, Jeff Riley, and Governor Charlie Baker announced yesterday that the mask mandate would not be renewed when it expires on February 28, 2022. The past 2 years have been challenging for all of us. Throughout the pandemic, the district has had a thoughtful and measured approach for making decisions. We've worked tirelessly to ensure the safety of our students and staff. We had transitions moving from remote learning to hybrid learning to full in-person learning, masks on at recess, masks off at recess, limited capacity for busing, full capacity for busing, lunch in classrooms, split lunches, and finally next week, back to regular lunches in all schools. At each of these transitions, we've all learned how to adapt. Tonight, my recommendation to the Medfield School Committee is to transition once again from a state mandate to a local choice. This evening, I want to share 3 recommendations for transitioning to a mask optional environment for our students and staff. Please keep in mind the following with all 3 scenarios. The first, all mitigation strategies around fresh air, HVAC, air purification, open windows will stay in place. Symptomatic testing, home antigen testing programs, and pool testing will continue. The district has offered families the opportunity to have their child tested twice a week if they choose. As we move through the spring, we'll continue to watch for the effectiveness of pool testing and potentially end up phasing that out. According to DPH data, Medfield currently has a vaccination rate of greater than 95% in all of its school age groups. Our nurses continue to do an incredible job testing, and they've now hosted 9 vaccination clinics on site. DECA and DPH have changed their policy so that unvaccinated individuals are no longer required, but now strongly encouraged to wear a mask in a mask optional environment. Masks are still required in all buses, and this is a federal order, which we got a sense yesterday that might change at some point, but as of right now, they're still required in all buses. MIAA has not changed their mask policy for sports, but they do plan to meet in the coming days to discuss that. And I think the last point is really critical. If we transition to a mask optional environment, students, teachers, and staff members that choose to keep their mask on must be supported and respected by all members of our school community. Every family has their own unique circumstances that drive that decision. This needs to be a value of our entire community, not just the schools. So after consultation with medical and public health officials, I'd like to recommend 3 possible scenarios that would amend your current masking policy. Scenario number 1, grades 9 through 12. Exercise our waiver that we obtained by DECA and create a mask optional environment on February 14th, 2022, which is Monday. In K to 8, create a mask optional environment beginning on February 28th. This is in line with DECA and DPH. Now, we can't do any grade other than 9 through 12 before the 28th because we don't have a waiver for that, and DECA won't grant any more waivers for that. So that's why the K-8 has to start on the 28th in that particular scenario. Scenario number 2, grades 9 through 12, create a mask optional environment on February 28th, and also create a mask optional environment for K-8 on March 7th. So looking at having a week after vacation, that is one option. And then scenario number 3 is a combination of both. Exercise our waiver obtained by DECA and create a mask optional environment on February 14th. And then in K-8, create a mask optional environment beginning on March 7th. So I think any one of those 3 will work. I guess my message tonight is it's time. We need to move toward a mask optional environment and give people the choice. If they want to have their kids with a mask, fine. If they don't, let them have that choice. And I say that, you know, really because the fact that no other town really has plus over 95% vaccination rate. I mean, it's incredible what everyone has kind of done their part here and got vaccinated. I think that we look at our numbers, and the reason why I'm really targeting the high school first, you know, those were the first ones to get vaccinated. They're now boosted. And also our numbers at the high school are pretty low at this point. I think we have 3 positives all week at the high school. So I think that would, to me, would be the way to move into that first, and then transition into our K-8 students. Again, the first recommendation is to do it on February 28th, but I just want to give you those 3 different scenarios for you to talk about. And my message is, it's time to take the mask off if folks want to.
Does anyone on the committee, or would you like to call anybody, Kathy, or any kind of talk about what it looks like in the schools? We obviously have some thought we need to, we have K-8 here, but what about preschool?
So,
And how do we kind of manage that within the policy that we have?
yeah, so I would say just, looking at, what we've seen for numbers and some of the conversations I've had, I spoke with officials on our Board of Health, with our school physician, all in agreement of these different scenarios, thinking that this is the right time to do that. I think, it's been a long 2 years for everyone. And I think that if you look at having that option, if people are really concerned about it, they can still mask. I mean, it's not like we're saying there's no mask allowed at all. So we'll respect that right that people have, but I think the overarching theme here is that we'd like to have an optional mask environment for kids and teachers.
And that also includes our kids in the preschool.
I think at this point, I would wait for the preschool kids. We could just take a look at it. Maybe Kathy, if you want to just, give an opinion on that.
Since they're the only population that can't be vaccinated at this point, have no options.
Yeah, what I've laid out is K to 12.
Right.
Although that being said, we did our actually 9th clinic yesterday, and we did almost 100 kids, and the majority of them were young. They were kids that really had just turned 5 since our last clinics. So a number of the preschool kids are getting vaccinated, which is great. But yes, that's probably our more vulnerable population, but also the kids that aren't getting as ill.
Madam Chair, our school physician, Dr. McCullough, is also here. I know she wants to just give an opinion on the preschool piece.
We are set for rollout for vaccine for.
In February, I'm sorry.
Which is the end of February. End of February.
And in February, okay, so let's just make sure that we get that on the public record, because I want to make sure that you were heard. So Dr. McCullough just said that at the end of February, they are set to roll out vaccines for children 2 to 4.
And that's like a brand new email from 2 days ago.
And they would also be two doses?
So that's a little bit of it's a little bit of a debate right now. It's currently a 2-dose briefing, but there might be a 3-dose coming up. It's a really smaller dose than 12.
Do you think there's any
And you're-
possibility of having clinics for our kids at that age, or is that a little too young? I love a good clinic, man. Gets things done.
So doesn't
I
Kathy.
do too.
Kathy's done enough of them.
We love,
We probably will have to go to the pediatrician though, I think,
Okay.
at that age.
yeah, at that
Yeah.
age, it's a little too intense. Okay. All right. Do I hear?
I have just one question.
Yes, please. That's what I'm
I know that
asking.
we've received a lot of correspondence over the last 24 hours after the governor spoke, and I see a lot of propaganda tonight, and I know what side that you're on, and
Or just a picture.
we did get some information from people that are still skeptical, and the option, obviously, this would leave the option for them to still mask. I
Right.
know that a lot of the questions were regarding options for lunches when the lunch is returned back to, in the lunchroom. If people don't feel that that's a safe environment for their child, what is the option there?
Well, we're looking at returning lunches next week, so just kind of socializing that before the masks come off at the younger grades to kind of get them back in there. I have to tell you, I mean, I know that some people think we're a little too measured on some of this and thoughtful on this, because there are other districts that didn't do any of the stuff and didn't do any of the spacing or whatever, so, and they've had pretty good results from that. So, I mean, we're actually having a leadership meeting tomorrow to talk a little bit about that, how we would do that, but we feel like, we feel like it's still a safe environment for the kids to have lunch in now and to kind of move forward with that.
And actually, I know you probably didn't intend to say this, but I don't think it's about people being skeptical about whether they have masks on or off. We really do want to be very careful to make sure that people know that if they have family members, if they themselves do not feel like they want to take off their mask, if this is, masking for a lot of people is very much a medical reality of their life. And we want to make sure that every kid feels like and every staff person who wants to, feels like they are able to wear a mask without having that called out. I think that kids in generally would not do that. It's more, but I just want to make sure that we all understand as a community that this is, if we were to, no matter what we kind of vote on, masks will still need to be acceptable in our school for a population of kids. And we just want to make sure that that's something that we encourage across the board. So Kathy, you wanted to say?
And I just have to say, during the summer program, it was mask optional at that point
Right.
before cases had increased. And about half the kids wore masks and half didn't. And it really wasn't an issue for anybody. It's, people made that choice and kids went, it was very easy. So I think it'll continue to be the same way.
Can I check in with my student advisors and my student rep? Why don't I hit my student rep first? Carrie,
Yeah.
what do you think?
For
Are you thinking in terms of it almost sounds disingenuous to ask this because I know I have a 16-year-old that I drop off every morning. He's like, "Come in my house." And he's not real thrilled about it. But your general overall sense is that whether people wear masks or
I think
do you have a
obviously
thought?
like no one wants to wear the mask, but like I think any of us would wear a mask than to go back to that like online learning.
Oh, God, yes. We're not doing that.
I
We're
feel
not
like
there.
everyone obviously doesn't want to wear them anymore, but it's definitely like we'd rather just wear it like than have to go to like online learning.
Do you think that there is a way, and I'll ask you guys this as well, how could we kind of make people's choice to wear a mask or not more friendly? Like there are things like, I'm sure that people won't want to, or may not want to identify why they're choosing to wear a mask. I mean, maybe they'll want to wear it one day and won't the other. Or however they're kind of going. Do you think that there will be any kind of, like, what would the conversations in the hall
Yeah,
be like? Do you have a thought about that? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No,
That's why I'm gonna call them in.
that's a good
second,
question.
too.
I'd have to think about it more, but I think obviously people are gonna have like opinions and stuff, but I mean, I think like if everyone knows that like you have the option, there's no judgment there, like if you choose to or not, then like, I think it shouldn't be a big deal.
Do you think that there's a way that the administrators at the high school, at Blake, at the elementary schools, how could we help people feel? Or anyway, we facilitate that acceptance? Is there anything that?
Like I said, just like making sure it's like judgment free, like I don't know, like,
Yeah.
making sure like people know that you have the option, and like if you do choose to wear it, then like that's your choice, and it doesn't matter.
Okay.
If like I don't know if like Stuka or anything can do anything, but we'll like definitely think about it.
Speaking of Stuka, would you guys, the student representatives, do you guys want to come up? You can come up and come to the podium. And if you want to, you can, pull up chairs or whatever. I want you to have to feel like you're just standing there out in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to put you guys all on the spot, but really this does affect you, so what are your thoughts about removing the masks? Do you think kids who might choose to continue to wear masks or staff who might continue to wear masks will be able to feel like they're in a positive environment in which that would be okay? What do you think we could do to encourage that? And, like what are your thoughts about this? I can imagine that you're probably like, gee, I totally want to keep it, but go ahead.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate what Carrie was saying, like, we've been wearing masks for so long, no one like wants to wear one, but like, I think the keyword is optional, so if you want to wear one, you wear one, if you don't, you don't. Because masks are so normal now, no one really is like, why are you wearing a mask? Like sports games, like, or just like out and about, just some people wear masks, some people don't. And you're not necessarily, oh, why are you wearing a mask? Like, it makes sense that you're wearing a mask. And that's the same goes for like within the high school. If you want to wear one, you do. If you don't, you don't. Like, so the optional, like, I think it's good. So like, that's what, like, you're worried about people, like, if it's like wearing a mask is like not, like, you already maybe talked about wearing a mask, like,
I mean, it's a small worry, but I still want to make sure that people know that they have options.
yeah.
I could care less whether you wear one or not, or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that people feel safe and understanding that they have the option to do either.
Yeah, I do believe that everyone understands that this is an optional decision. Just because, as high schoolers, like, we understand that and everything, so yeah, it's super optional and everyone would just understand what everyone's decision would be.
Yeah, I also feel like at this point, everyone is aware that people may have certain medical conditions that might make or cause them to wear a mask. I don't really think people would be judging if you want to wear a mask. I personally don't think it would be a big problem. I think at this point, everyone just wants to stop the mask. It's very-
Wearing masks is the greatest thing that they've ever done, honestly. It is not fun, and it is not something we like. And honestly, I've broken more pairs of glasses taking them on and off. But we've done what we needed to do so far, and now we're at this point where we get to have a transition. Assuming that's how we end up following Dr. March's recommendation.
I'm
So-
comfortable with scenario number one. Based on what
So
Dr. Myers
scenario number one would be,
and obviously he'll keep us apprised of any of the current federal, the impact on the busing, of course, and federal requirements there and IAA. So obviously we'll have to revisit it as those change, but I'm comfortable with scenario one. I'm not sure about the rest of the community.
Yeah, I support scenario one as well,
Yeah.
with the caveat that we kind of wait on the preschool until that information that Dr. McCullough has shared with us becomes real.
Dr. McCullough and Thompson, do you
It
think
was
that
actually
that's
in the
a
news today, the
wise?
doses were shipped, so they're just waiting for the CDC recommendation.
So I guess I have to think, like, what would a date be around wanting to revisit pre-K? For those younger children. I mean, if we're waiting for them to be shipped, it's 6
Right, they're
weeks.
not going to be fully vaccinated
For a
for
while.
several
Right,
weeks.
right.
Okay, so perhaps we kind of keep a bead on that, which kind of makes it a little tough to just think what we will have to do is amend our emergency policy. Does that sound?
Yeah, I wanted to ask one question.
Yeah, please, Tim. And I'm not making a motion yet. I just-
Yeah, no, Dr. Marson, I've asked this and lots of other similar topics, but what's your general pulse from the teachers and across the different schools? Have we had any?
Yeah, I mean, the feedback that I've gotten is pretty positive about removing the masks. I mean, I think, I'm getting comments like, I can't wait to see my students' faces again, I mean, those kinds of things. So I think it's been pretty positive in that regard too. I mean, there's definitely concerns around what Jess had talked about, where they just want to make sure that people that decide to keep them on are okay. I think that was a theme that came out of a conversation I had, because there are definitely some teachers that have concerns that we'll keep them on, certainly, and if kids do, they do, that's fine too.
But I also know that there are kids who, who have families who have immunocompromised parents, or, there are the day-to-day things that happen sometimes that aren't permanent necessarily, that are just kind of acute issues that they would need to put a mask on and then perhaps not keep it
Right.
on, or whatever, but
But overall positive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I heard the MTA was raising it, but there's not as far as I know, there's not a union issue.
You mean the math teachers?
Correct.
I just want to make sure it wasn't Medfield. You say-
No, yeah, the math
No,
teachers.
math teachers won't.
there.
That's what they do.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I came up with this slogan, it's like, your choice is cool. Like whatever choice you do, because it's not cool in one way or the other, your choice. is cool. Not a slogan.
I think you might be a dad. And so, Tim, you would be amenable to scenario one?
I haven't, I'm receptive to that, yeah. I think I like,
I mean, I
I like the
feel-
scenario. I was excited with the announcement yesterday.
Yeah.
And
Aren't we all?
I think it's worthwhile to hear if there was any other input from the folks here.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm-
That's
I'm,
the next step.
Of the scenarios, I'd say why, my initial reaction is why wait?
I mean, I think in my conversations with Dr. Marston, there have been some members of the community who have been concerned that maybe we should wait a little longer after February break because, people go on vacations and there's a lot of, is there viral transfer there? But the research that you have seen shows that it's mostly, it's not necessarily you get a bump.
Yeah, it's pretty anecdotal. It's not real research. It's
Okay,
just
thank you.
anecdotal from what we've seen, that
And
we've been getting the bumps after holidays that are gatherings, not so much travel, right? So we had a bump at elementary a week and a half to 2 weeks after Halloween. So that was clearly people getting together, right?
that was
Thanksgiving,
during the Delta.
right?
Oh,
then
thanks, guys, for
Thanksgiving,
sitting down. I'm sorry.
and then again, around the winter holidays and Christmas and everything. So that it was definitely a bump there as well. So I think that we've seen those. Kathy, who does all the contact tracing, she saw a little bit of the bump regarding travel during Christmas time as well, but a lot of it was the socialization of, people getting together at house parties, those kinds
Finally,
of things.
yeah,
So,
feeling like.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I think I need to do, I mean, I'm in favor of going for scenario one. I don't really think that there's much purpose to waiting for an extra week or whatever. But I do want to, can we talk about how we would construct this policy so that we can continue to include, or do we need to, can we strike this policy and simply have a procedure for the preschool? What do we think
Yeah, I
is
mean-
the,
I think you could amend your current masking policy with scenario one, and, because remember, scenario one does say 9 to 12 and K to 8.
okay,
So preschool would still remain as it is if you want to keep it that way.
let me take a look at this policy really super quick.
So that way you can,
Anybody else who wants to put eyes on the policy and see how we can kind of revisit that? Okay, I think what we can do,
and you can rescind the whole policy if you want. I mean, you can do that too.
we can, and I don't mind that, but so much of this has to do with face masks and this, we wrote the actual, sorry, this is the boring part where we try to figure out how to do it as opposed to what we're doing, and I apologize, and then we'll take public comment. So don't worry. All right. I think maybe the easiest thing to do is actually rescind the policy.
Yeah, because interim policy, it's not a permanent policy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know that we had both kind of been noodling back and forth about that, but if we rescind the policy as of February 14th.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So I know this sounds a little disingenuous, I am going to open this to public comment, but can I see kind of a show of hands of how many people are here in favor of removing masks? And then there are people here who also would like to talk about extending the policy or extending a period of time? No? Okay. Well. So if anybody is going to approach the podium for Matt, so I invite you to approach the policy, approach the podium. Sorry, it has been a day full of meetings. Approach the podium, give us your name, if that's all right with you. Okay, and then let us know your statement. Everybody here will have 3 minutes. Okay. Although I do give grace periods to kids. Okay, so if you would like to approach the podium, please go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. This is from a kid's point of view.
Excellent.
I really my name is John Sullivan. I'm 9 years old and I am in 3rd grade. My teacher is Mrs. Lynn. I'm also in the Wheelock School Student Council. I am asking you guys to vote today to remove the masks. They have always been something I've hated. They give me a rash on my chin. I don't like when the teacher always reminds me to fix my mask. It comes down a lot even when I tighten it because they talk a lot. This makes me feel frustrated. My friends don't like them either. Masks are hard for me to breathe sometimes. Masks make it hard to tell if people are smiling or not. Please stop the masks and vote for us not to have to wear the masks anymore. Thanks for listening to me.
What, buddy?
I think I'm the youngest person here.
Honestly, I can't imagine an adult here who doesn't feel that very same way about the masks, too. It does make us crazy. We've kept them on for a reason. But I think our reason is passing now, which is just amazing. Would anybody else like to approach the podium?
Hi, Renee Howley, 3 Harding Street.
Renee.
I'm so encouraged by this conversation. Thank you all.
Did you think we were going to be horrible and just say no?
Well, you never know, right?
Yeah.
There's a
We're
lot
not those people, honestly.
averseness in our town.
I know, it's been a rough year, hasn't it?
So I did just write down a few things I still think is worth saying. For almost 2 years, our kids have done what they have been asked to do. They have learned remotely, they've masked up, they've gotten vaccinated, in many cases boosted. They've missed proms, school trips, graduations, school dances, concerts, sports. They've eaten outside, on gym floors, and on dirty bleachers. They've ridden buses and taken classes in freezing temperatures with open windows. They've participated in pool testing and they've quarantined. Our youngest students have never had a normal school year. They've not seen their teachers' faces, their friends' smiles outside short lunch or snack periods. Our kids who might struggle with language can't see their teachers' mouths to help them learn. A few weeks back, I was listening to one of the DECA meetings and one teacher brought me to tears. She asked, why are our kids still masked? Who are we asking them to protect? Where else in history have we used our children as shields? This statement really resonated with me. We are using our children as shields. It needs to stop. Please, I beg you, give our kids this one piece of normalcy. Let them see their teachers' faces, their friends' smiles. Let our high school kids take their masks off now, per the approved waiver. Let the mandate across all schools drop per DECA guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up for their 3 minutes?
Yes.
Hit it. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Again, this has been great, actually, more than I expected. Flavia Benson, 10
Hi,
Buffalo
Flavia.
Road. I did want to address the preschoolers. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think that's really important for us too. When we consider removing the masks, we should also include preschoolers on there. They are the ones that have really had some of the worst experiences they're at a developmental stage where they really need to have the interaction with looking at faces, looking at each other, smiling. I think it would be disingenuous for us to have it for everybody else, but except for them. In particular, because, you know, if you look at all the countries in Europe that have mask mandates for children, no country in Europe had mask mandates for 12-year children and younger. I think for us to remove it from everybody else and just have it for preschoolers is completely disingenuous from our part. So I would really urge you as the committee to read on what others have done with the little kids who, again, are the least susceptible to COVID-19. And also we have, we don't want them to have any more issues with struggling with school or mental health or anything like that. So I would just urge you guys to look into some of those other countries and what they've done and adopt some of those policies as we look into moving forward. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else? I think we've got room for one or two more.
Hi, Lauren Lilligren, 83 South Street.
Hello, Lauren.
I just want to echo what Flavia shared. DECA doesn't regulate ages 3 and 4. The early childhood education department does. And masks are already optional for that age group, right? Masks are optional currently for ages 2, 3, and 4. These children do not need to be required to wear a mask. Any child whose ages 2, 3, and 4 can wear one if they want to. But Medfield Public School has gone above and beyond even what other local school districts have done. There's no reason for ages 2, 3, and 4 to be required to wear a mask today or certainly after the 28th. So I would absolutely urge you to make masks optional. These children are the least susceptible to severe outcomes from COVID-19. And I say all the time, I mean, if you wanted to create a generation of children with autism, what would you do differently than have them spend all day with everybody around them with their faces covered? If you sat around a brainstorming table and said, how do we create a generation of autistic children? What else would you do but what we're doing to these toddlers today? So please, I beg of you, there's no reason for 2, 3, and 4-year-olds to wear masks tomorrow or after the 28th. So thank you.
I'm Laura McCullough. I live.
I'm so sorry. Tell me your name again. I didn't.
Laura McCullough.
Hi, Laura. Oh, God, Laura, I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on. Those are my
It's the mask.
stupid mask.
I recognize her because
Do you
of the mask.
understand?
Yeah, you couldn't see her.
I know, well, I mean, I literally couldn't.
Glasses.
See her.
Everybody does.
Yeah, and I wasn't planning on.
And she has
saying
blowout.
anything. I just actually took a shower today. I wasn't gonna jump in until the whole, we didn't actually think about the preschool comment before, and I do have to agree. I think your comment about the creating a generation of autistic kids is appropriate, and, you know, I mean, only worse than that is kind of sticking our tablets in them, you know, 12 hours a day, as we've been doing during the pandemic.
Set up a table and let's think of some ideas. Everything we've done, that's what you do.
I will say that I think that the preschool population has the greatest benefit of making masks optional. In terms of socialization, in terms of language acquisition, in terms of all the things that everybody has said. And I will tell you that being a pediatrician in the office, I have seen both sides of parents coming to me saying, I just want to get them vaccinated first before we pull the mask. I had that conversation actually with a parent today. So I think you are going to encounter people in that population whose kids haven't gotten the shot, whose kids haven't vaccinated, whose parents have been waiting and worrying for that. And they are going to want, and we are going to need to support that. But I think that there isn't a reason, I would say at this point, to not include our preschool kids in that, especially with the horizon of their ability to be vaccinated around the corner. The other thing is that what's different now, as opposed to any other time frame when we've been talking about masks versus not, with the bump that you get after the holidays, bump that you get after the gatherings, this is now endemic. You know, for the first time with Omicron, this is now endemic. Where we should be.
And we also have options around treatment, which is the other issue that we have never had
And I will
before to
say,
that
like,
extent.
Omicron is hitting the kids harder. Like, you know, this is before kids weren't symptomatic. We are seeing fevers. We are seeing kids that are having respiratory But this is what happens every year. This is now, as Trump said, can't believe I'm quoting him, but this is now the flu because we are an endemic virus. It's a different ballgame than we were 2 years ago.
I wish we could just be all fighting about this, but it all sounds incredibly reasonable, so thank you.
To remove the policy that.
Yeah.
Dr. Marsden manages the district.
I'm sorry, I have
Oh, boy.
one quick thing.
Yes,
Leanne
name?
Bravo, Leanne Bravo, 23 Lowell Mason Road.
Hi.
We keep talking about
Oh, Leanne,
supporting our
sorry, again.
kids that are gonna continue to wear masks and
Sorry.
the staff that's gonna continue to wear masks. What about the kids that choose not to mask? Are you gonna support them from bullying? Because I keep hearing about supporting kids that are wearing masks.
You know, actually, Leanne, I have to tell you, and I'll just address this really quickly because I wouldn't want this to be a misinterpretation.
Cool.
My feeling is that most kids will take off masks and never look in the rearview mirror again. So, but there is always a concern that we have about kids whose, you know, to some extent, their difference or their family concerns or just their concerns would be indicated by masking. And that's why I think
Right,
we're
but like they-
emphasizing
the
the
girls are
optional part of it so much.
Right, but like the girls were saying, like masking is so normal now.
Yeah.
Nobody's real, I don't see somebody picking on somebody.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a mask or they do have a mask, but I just want to make sure that everybody's supported the same way and nobody's singled out. That's
Oh, yeah.
what
no,
I'm saying.
Thank you.
Asking.
I appreciate that, Leanne.
Dr.
Please don't
Martha.
misinterpret my concern for thinking anything else.
Can we, go back, because you were making, you know, the original recommendation with excluding the pre-K. You know, any other thoughts like that went into that?
I mean, I'm fine with pre-K having an option. I really am. You know,
Yeah,
based
I mean,
on the conversations that I've had, I think that makes sense.
And I think I just wanted to clarify, since we were looking at K to 8 in the policy and, you know.
Well, let's
just
just say
wanna
our
make sure.
policy doesn't cover pre-K anyway.
Yeah.
So and we're a bunch of those to get rid of it. So
Yeah.
at that point in time, it's no longer a policy, so.
So does the committee feel as though that they would like to make a motion to rescind the EBC supplemental interim policy to address the COVID-19 pandemic crisis in the school year 2021-22?
So moved.
So moved. So Leo is moving. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Tim Knight seconds. Okay, I will take a vote. It does not have to be a roll call. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any nays? Well, I would say that as of the 14th, kids in the high school.
Take them off, Terry.
When Desi
As soon
allows
as we
you
can
to.
do it at 28th.
Yeah, so all the other grades, 28. Time you're, woo, John, yes. You know, if I weren't as old as I am, I'd be doing the same thing. So, yeah, and actually most of that is 1 week and then you've got February vacation, so. There you go. Thanks, folks.
Did I hear the 2, 3, and 4-year-olds as of the 14th, no masks?
Option.
And that's optional.
Is it optional for 2, 3, and 4 as of the 14th because they're not covered?
Oh, no,
under
it's
DECA?
28 for that.
28, yeah, 28. We will make sure that these things are all clear. Okay. Send out messages and balloons and stuff. Thank you so much for coming and expressing your concerns. Thank you so much for having a community conversation in which we were able to actually talk to each other. I always appreciate and prefer that. Thank you so much. And John, thank you for being such a well-spoken person. You really represented the Medfield schools very nicely.
Good
Thank
job,
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I'm probably gonna bring this, I may bring some stuff, highlights about this meeting up in the student council meeting
That's
tomorrow.
an awesome idea. Awesome
Well,
idea.
and if you want me to come to student council, I'll talk about it too, okay? I'd be very happy to. You let me know. All right, so, now I'm going, no, we actually have to do approval of
Oh, man.
minutes. Yeah,
So
I
check
figured
those
that we
off.
all just wanted to get so to the mask thing. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the budget hearing and regular school committee meeting on January 27th, 2022. And do I hear a motion to approve? All right, and do I hear a second?
Second to that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. And now we'll vote to approve and retain the minutes for the executive session on January 27th, 2022. Do we hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Tim? Leo second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. Okay, now the student advisory. Do you guys, I think there are 4 chairs here. If you guys want to come up, or you can come up to the podium, whatever you'd like to do. So we didn't come to this, usually I kind of give you guys where we brainstorm kind of a constructed question. But it's the middle of the year, it's really busy, and I knew that this was also gonna be a really long meeting, and we can talk about what you guys, with Mrs. Hagan, we can talk about what you guys might like to talk about in April. Wait, is it April? Yeah, April, your next meeting. But what do you have generally to kind of talk to us tonight about how the year is going? How are you feeling about this? You know, lower half of your face showing on a regular basis. How your workload is, if there are any concerns that you've been hearing of through your classes. Kevin, you want?
Yeah, so starting with the math, I know that we were just talking about that for a while, but touching on the fact that we're worried about kids feeling left out or feeling almost like they're different for wanting to wear their masks over the kids that do not want to wear the mask. I think enough conversation between the students, the faculty, administration, just sort of enunciating on the fact that it is completely okay, whatever choice you decide to make, making kids feel as comfortable as possible, and really prioritizing the students and the faculty, how they feel. I think that's really important. And I think with our school, I think we will be able to adjust, and we will be very supportive of each other's decisions. Because we know that if a student decides to keep their mask on, it is probably for personal reasons, and we want to be able to be respectful of what they decide to do. Same with the people that decide to take their masks off. They will, another person said, the worry about how students might treat people who do decide to take their masks off, and it goes the same way. I think our school has learned to be very respectful of each other, so I think whatever decision students decide to make, I think we will all be pretty easygoing about it. So that's the last thing. Moving on, so today, juniors and seniors had a presentation from Chris Herron. This was incredibly interesting. Chris Herron was a former NBA player and high school all-star, and he struggled with addiction. And after several overdoses, he decided that it was time to stop. And we didn't hear too much about his personal story, but it was very targeted at our audience and targeted at just the fact that high school students, this is the prime time where substance abuse and alcohol usage is very susceptible. And so it was really interesting. It was very moving. There were many students that were moved to tears. And it was a great presentation. I think we all learned a lot from it, and I think it will definitely have an impact on the junior and senior grades. I actually have a lot of stuff to talk about.
Oh my gosh, Catherine. Right,
this is kind of a time for seniors where life is starting to get a little bit crazier. Things are starting to change. We're hearing back from colleges, which is very exciting. But also coming up, a lot of students are participating in senior projects. which I myself am included in that. And so I will be out of here in April, which is exciting, but I'll be in and out for AP classes. So I think a lot of students are getting excited about that and turning in applications. Applications are due on February 18th. So that's something that we're all looking forward to. And tomorrow we have all seniors who are taking a language this year are participating in the Apple test to see if they can get their seal of biliteracy. So that's going to be an all-day type of test. It's going to be horrible. I'm going to just be completely honest.
I'm so glad you're going into this with that can-do positive spirit.
It's not going to be. I'm not looking forward to it, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I wish it was optional, but it's okay. I mean, I want to take 4 years of language, so it's on me, but but that's what's going on for seniors right now. It's kind of a crazy time, but like you said, for the workload, I found that personally, it hasn't changed so much. It's going to definitely change for myself and all people that are, all students that are doing senior projects, just because they will be going into their C1 classes or C2 classes, only their AP classes. And so because of that, workload is definitely going to be a lot different. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes. Yeah, that's all for the senior class.
Thank you. And actually, it's some other time, not right now, because I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'd love to hear about what your senior project is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, so for the junior class, not much is really going on. We're just, getting a lot of work. We're just starting the college process, so taking SATs. The one here is March 12th, so everyone's like preparing for that. The Chris Heron presentation was really moving, just like Catherine said. It's really interesting to just like hear a presentation like coming from someone's perspective and not like telling us, I don't know if this will make sense, like not telling us to not do it, like showing his experience. Because like we were we had a meeting with Mrs. Hagan, the student representatives, senior and junior class did, and the sophomores and freshmen did, but we were separate. And one of the biggest topics was like the alcohol use and the effects it has. And it was just nice to see that like that perspective of someone who went through it. One of the main, we talked about the car crash that happened, not the specific details, because it really affected a lot of people in the high school. And we didn't talk about it as much as we would have liked to, not like the specific situation, just overall, like just how to prevent it and everything. So we talked about that, and that was a major concern of ours. And that night, Mrs. Hagan, she sent out an email for a program called I Decide, I believe. And it's like from Harvard Medical School, I think. So it was just like really nice to see some initiative with that, because that same night, Mrs. Hagan did something to like say something about it, which it's just like for the first, like it felt really nice, because it was like, okay, like our situation is real and like people are actually like understanding it. So yeah.
I think you guys are going to hear a lot more about substance use, and so there is just before the pandemic, Medfield Outreach got a very large grant to hire a substance use. What is Mary's actual title?
Prevention.
Prevention,
specialist.
correct. So a prevention specialist for substance use. And then, of course, the pandemic happens. What they're doing right now, and I think you probably know this, is that they're doing focus groups and strategic plan to really talk about how they can use these resources and bring more community resources in, so that we're not constantly focusing just on kids in high school, but really how do we enact cultural change, right? And I've been talking to Mary a lot about that, and I think that we're going to ask Mary and Medfield Outreach and maybe Dr. Worthley, the health advisor, to come and talk to us next meeting, because I think that it is something that we've wanted to do for a long time. We've identified it as something that every single class struggles with. I think it has a lot to do with not having very much to do in Medfield. And I think that there are community issues that we really need to talk about. in that. So I'm glad to hear that that's something that's resonating with you guys.
And we have Chris every 2 years, so
Yeah.
every other year he comes, so that every child at high school gets to go through his presentation. He's outstanding.
And so, and I also think that there's that kind of global, like Chris may really, really affect some people. There are other interventions that will really, really affect other people. And it's, just making sure that we're catching everyone. And I'd also like them to talk about the I Decide kind of initiative, because I think that that could be a pretty valuable issue. I'm sorry, you just caught me on my favorite subject. Is there anything else that you'd like to report about that, or? No?
I think just quickly, I forgot to mention like the circle groups that we had with Ms. Mendoza and Ms. Hagan. And we started these groups to talk about like issues that we think that should be resolved in the school, or just talking about general things that we could do better. And it's been really, really great to be, but we've only had one meeting, and so far, like Elizabeth said, we're already seeing initiative being taken. And so I think that's very comforting to know that we're actually being listened to. I know with student government, we actually don't do a lot. It seems like it's only like we're planning prom, and the president and I, DECA, we are actually working to like hopefully make some more change and try to do more within student government so that we can make a more lasting impact on the school. And then also sort of encourage the future senior presidents to make more of a change within the school and take initiative and do what they see needs to be changed. And so like Elizabeth said, the meetings have been really great, and I'm looking forward to being able to talk in more of them. And because they're so small and they're just with your grade and like another grade, it feels very comfortable if you're able to talk about issues that you think that are definitely there. There's not much pressure. I think if we were speaking in a larger group, there would definitely be a little bit more pressure to talk about things, but because it's smaller, it's much easier to just talk and just a lot of the things that we were talking about were very discussion based, and talking about conversation, talking about the car accident, how we can encourage conversation and whatnot. So yeah.
Thank you. Right ahead.
So
If you.
my student government didn't really get into that deep of a conversation with Ms. Hagan.
That's okay, we're not like evaluating, like, oh, yeah.
But we still did cover some really important topics, like semi. The majority of our topics.
This is really important.
It is important, but not necessarily as important as that. But we mainly talked about future events for our class because we haven't really had an event during our high school career. So we're doing a lot of planning for semi. We're hoping we can have that in April or May at some point, one point or another. Tomorrow, our student government's actually meeting with Mrs. Hagan to talk a little bit more about that. We also just had a wreath fundraiser during the winter months, and that went really well. We made a ton of profit from that. And I'm sure everyone's just going to be super excited about the masks. Everyone's been excited to get that off. And we also talked about in the cafeteria, we just talked a little bit about the X's on every other seat. And it seems like that should be going away soon, as well as other COVID protocols. So that's super exciting. And other than that, our year's going pretty well. So
That's great. That's good. Those are not small things. I mean, semi is a part of life that these guys didn't necessarily get to do. And we'd like to try to get back to, this thing's gonna hang around for a while. We'll have like little parts. This will be things, you'll remember this period of your life, and maybe someday you'll laugh about masks or, the X's or stay 6 feet away or whatever. But the more that we can get to the regular stuff, it's also not lost on me that we're almost exactly 2 years, basically, from when this started. And I remember sitting at this table thinking, I cannot believe that we're not coming to school tomorrow, let alone 3 months. So it's not a small deal. And I think that there will be people who are more emotional about it than you think. So that's all right. We like emotions. They're good. Get them out. Thank you so much.
I think our grade, like, we've like been adjusting, but like, it's much more normal now that we're having like tests like every week and like we're getting used to it. A bunch more as to like, we didn't really do anything like our 8th grade or 7th grade. So like, it was a big jump, but like, we're kind of getting used to it now and like getting like the groove, which is nice. And then our student government, we're kind of like still struggling like to find like a way to like make money as a fundraiser. We're thinking of something sort of like that you like buy tickets to, opposed to like buying like specific things. We're still like trying to figure out one of those. Yeah, I mean, we've done some like charities, like I think we raised like 65. I think we did a winter clothing drive for this organization. I think we got like 8 trash bags full of like winter coats and stuff, like 65 gallons, which is good. Yeah, we've been like talking about semi a lot. Yeah.
Do you guys have, well, you probably didn't do freshman year fundraisers. Like your knowledge bank is kind of lost, right? In terms of being able to think about what our freshman class did for fundraisers before this. So is there a way or any a way that we could help you or kind of brainstorm around what those fundraisers might be, what they're looking for? Or are there resources in the high school that can help you do novel things or?
I don't know. I think they're like really just trying to figure out like what people like in our grade want. So like what they would like, if they would like buy different things or like buy tickets to like something like turn into something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll get there. I know you will. Don't worry about it. It's gonna come organically and all of a sudden you'll be like, oh my God, this is the best idea ever. Honestly. Do you guys want to ask anything you're curious about within the?
I was just gonna ask about that presentation, but they jumped right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you giving up your evening, and I also really appreciate you allowing us to do the mask thing first and letting me put you on the spot a little bit about what's going on and how you guys perceive it. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. All right. Now, we move on. If I look on my agenda. I printed it. Hey, thank you, Dr. Martin. Okay, so the next thing up is the superintendent's evaluation. Oh, that's why we remember that. So every 2 years, we do what's called a summative evaluation of Dr. Marston. This is a program that DECA put into place a few years ago for superintendents who are more senior and experienced. They kind of once a year, really intense kind of evaluation could be stretched out to 2 years and have a formative evaluation in the midst within that time. So the school committee all completed the DECA end of cycle summative evaluation report. And then I took those together and have essentially come up with a summary of their points and kind of come up with where we've seen Dr. Marston's performance over the last 2 years. So we'll switch over to that. All right, so every 2 years, Dr. Marston kind of comes up with 5 goals, and these are goals that are about kind of what DECA looks at in terms of kind of granular issues or larger issues under the topics of professional practice goals, student learning goals, and then district improvement goals. And Many of these goals were formed in November of 2019. So the world changed enormously during that time. And we found that in general, Dr. Marsden still, while he was dealing with the pandemic, made significant progress on most of these, or he met them. There are people who would believe that, or who have expressed that they believe that he exceeded them, particularly in professional practice, student learning goals, and district improvement goals. The district improvement goals were essentially the one that he technically did not meet was the completing a new strategic plan. That was a that was kind of a deliberate choice not to do that kind of research in a time where you would need to be able to have people within focus groups, be able to have people meet and kind of generate that community input so that you can get all the stakeholders together. We were sincerely hoping. So we're going to do an RFP, and we've begun the process, but we have not completed it, obviously. So otherwise,
We haven't put the RFP out, but we're doing that this later this spring so that we can start in the fall.
Right. I know that we've all kind of discussed that. In general, the committee agreed that Dr. Marsden reached, the majority of the committee agreed that Dr. Marsden reached the level of proficient for his overall end of cycle summative evaluation. Two of our body also believe that he reached an exemplary level, but I think that we can kind of agree that you did very well and that we are absolutely most of the comments that I have, or all of the comments that I've seen from our committee speak of how well you took on a task and what was a Herculean task of the pandemic and really did bring us through that. And I, as chair, got to maybe even see more, I think, sometimes than you guys did about the insane amount of time, the 60, 70, 80-hour weeks of just trying to get kids back into school, trying to lead along with the administrative team, which is, you put together and is really on top of things, trying to teach teachers and enable our district to move out of a building and into, just their living rooms in the worst environment possible, and then getting them back in and what we've done over that time. So I'd like to add some of the comments that I was able to pull from the evaluations. And this is a little bit of a summary of that. The committee overall rated Dr. Marsden's performance over the last 2 years as either the high standard of proficient or exemplary. Major themes were his overwhelming commitment to not only reinventing how to provide education in an entirely different way and reintegrate students into school from September 2020 on, but the full-time commitment that took while performing the Herculean work with the school building committee throughout that time to design a 21st century learning environment to the highest standards, regardless of the community's eventual decision not to approve funding for that project. And I took some, Anna Mae O'Shea Brooks said, although I fully understand the importance of the exercise of talking about goals and whether they had been met, for instance, with the strategic plan, I believe that limiting Dr. Marsden to a handful of goals truly limits the reality and scope of his overall job, which has been executed with grace under fire during these pandemic years. Based on the metrics in this limited evaluation, he gets an overall proficient grade. But in considering the totality of his performance, Dr. Marston deserves exemplary. If I can take another excerpt, while many people, and this is from Megan, while many people may reflect back on the first few weeks or months of the pandemic as a time where everything stopped and used the time away to pick up a new hobby, no such respite existed for a superintendent of schools. In fact, the last 2 years may be noted as the most challenging time in history to be a superintendent. Dr. Marsden has worked tirelessly to create a safe environment for the students and staff, often in the face of anger, resentment, and fear, and often without any guidance from state or federal authorities. What needs to be emphasized in this evaluation is the exemplary way in which Dr. Marsden quickly implemented measures within the physical environment of our schools in order to bring the students and staff back safely. Moreover, when vaccines became available, Dr. Marsden preemptively worked with local pharmacies and public health agencies to host clinics for both the staff and students in order to make them more accessible. And I also want to say that his entire administrative team has been amazing during the pandemic. I think that it's leaders create teams, but teams support leaders. And we understand how much work you put in as well, all of you. So, and then I think that we should also speak to Dr. Marsden's financial stewardship of the district during this time, because I don't think that it should be underappreciated. So this is one of my pullouts. Dr. Marsden's creative use of revolving funds and federal and state grants to enhance student learning and access and community resources has put the school district in the position to benefit from these emergency resources for years to come, while keeping all of our valued staff employed through the 3 months of the school's physical closure. He was able to achieve the goal of providing one-to-one technology, not only for students in secondary schools, but to every child and every family in the district who needed something. And will again use those resources to provide technology to our secondary students. Any goals not met in their entirety since they were set at the beginning of this evaluation period in November of 2019 were deliberately deferred because of the higher priorities of supporting our students and staff through a grinding crisis that tested everyone's resilience to the limit. It is because of his and his administrative team's dedication to our students and employees that we are able to consider the greater growth that we are able to see over the next several years. So, are you embarrassed yet?
I don't really love this process.
I know, nobody
It
does.
is what
I
it is.
understand. And the reason that we're kind of laughing about this is that the superintendent is a superintendent of schools is the only public employee who has their review done in public in the state of Massachusetts. So I do have to say that that we truly do mean all of these things. I don't think that anyone here just created anything. We have been able to see Dr. Marsden in far more intense circumstances for far more time, because we have actually had to put in more time as a school committee than I think any school committee has had to in history, honestly, and that speaks to school committees across the country. So I feel very confident in our kind of assessment of Dr. Marsden's performance. Which brings me on to the superintendent's performance rating for standard number 1, which is instructional leadership. Across the board, I think that we agreed that he reached the high standard of proficient. And to bring some comments to this, COVID has forced the committee and superintendent to make decisions well outside the typical realm of education, be it regarding science or epidemiology. Dr. Marsden consistently considered multiple sources of data, repeated consulting with colleagues within the educational community, various Massachusetts government officials, as well as noted public health professionals, in order to make sure sound recommendations, to the committee for creating a safe environment for our students and our educators. One comment is that we are looking forward to the director of curriculum to work with staff and leadership teams, which I know that she's actively doing, to effectively make both the curriculum being covered in our classrooms and the benchmark assessments tracking our learners' progress available in a more collaborative fashion with our parent community and staff. to ensure the best success for our learners. And I know that that is part of what you would like to be doing, and that is something that Dr. Power is working on actively right now. So I think it will be really exciting to see that coming to fruition next year. In management and operations, overall, the committee believed that you earned an exemplary. In this, it's almost difficult to explain exactly how much you have done in management and operations, and I do think that we elucidated it in the first part there. But you know, we were talking about not only with the pandemic, but you know, as Anna Mae said, a good leader is only as good as its team. And I believe that Dr. Marston has built a solid and cohesive leadership team that works towards the same vision. And we were able to institute mitigation procedures much more quickly during the summer of 2020 than many other districts, by procuring, I can't believe somebody wrote this and expected me to say it, procuring proper PPE. And that enabled Medfield schools to open our doors in person at the very start of the 2021 school year. And that was not the reality for many, many school districts. In fact, most, I would say that there was a much longer time before students got into the classroom at all, hybrid or not. And perhaps no other time period has the superintendent's ability to work collaboratively with both the teachers union and the school committee been more important. Dr. Marsden during this time led MOA negotiations in the spring of 2020, when we first grappled with how to handle the shutdown of the schools, the fall reopening, and the return to full in-person in 2021. Likewise, following the mandates outlined by DECA, Dr. Marsden led the collaborative development of 3 separate reentry plans over the summer of 2020, which ultimately resulted in the successful implementation of a hybrid model. The next standard is 3, family and community engagement. Overall, the committee felt as though he performed in an exemplary way. There were 2 who felt he did the high rating of proficient. Dr. Marsden's overall rating for family and community engagement by the majority of the committee was exemplary, with 2 members rating his performance as proficient. Committee members cited examples of his visibility and involvement in the community, his consistent communication with families throughout the pandemic, his focus on understanding family concerns, both for staff and as for district families, and making conscious efforts to try to mitigate the already overwhelming burdens placed on them that were not so as to not make them worse by thoughtless decisions. And then for standard 4, which is professional culture, again, the committee believed that the majority of the committee believed that he performed in the exemplary rating, and 2 believed that he performed in the proficient. So some examples cited of his exemplary or proficient performance were his ability to manage the high level of conflict at almost every decision point, to allow continued forward momentum with an air of normalcy, negotiating multiple memorandums of agreement or contracts with all of our unions that required constant understanding and perspective taking of multiple stakeholders, forwarding the district's goals and increasing the spectrum of cultural understanding and cultural offerings in classrooms, and supporting staff-driven efforts toward increasing cultural competence in our schools. So in summary, I think that we are truly, truly pleased with how well we have been able to make it through this incredibly challenging time, and generally just impressed with how you were able to pivot from the job that you had always had to the whole new job that you had starting March 14th of 2020. And I feel like, and I would throw this out to the rest of the committee, we are positioned so that we have not lost ground, but have actually gained ground and are at a point where, as things become more normal, we are able to launch ourselves into the future with the initiatives that we've always wanted to do. So, do I have any other comments from the committee? Would anybody else like to add anything that they brought up in their evaluation, or do you feel that that's fair?
Goes any on any longer.
Leo, this is important, so we take longer for important things.
Sure. No, I think you
Anything
covered
else?
it quite well.
No, I think, and echo a lot of what you said, it came from us. You know, I mean, I just call out as I'm listening to, I mean, leadership, especially during some scary times for all. Like, I think of the time in August of 20, when you had all your staff out there on the football field. That was a kind of a tough process getting through with the union, and now we just signed it. And I was, just so amazed how that was so well organized. Right? It was like, just how did that happen? So, I mean, leadership is we saw it throughout. But from an operations perspective, as a school committee member, I just said, like, you have our back, because we know we're sometimes up against time. And that stuff is always there, right? Like, we absolutely know that. So we always saw it giving your all. Sometimes during the pandemic, we were elsewhere. Jeff was in his office. And probably the biggest thing that I just didn't hear, but I've heard it so many times since I've been here, is the rally call, which is, you know, how can we make it better for the kids? You know,
Kids
and
first,
I hear that,
right.
Jeff, from you constantly, but I hear it from your staff. I hear it in, you know, SEL meetings where you're not there. And, you know, I'm grateful for that. And, you know, so I just would say that it was a tough, you know, it was a tough couple of years. When we built those goals, they didn't exactly map to what we, or when you know, shared those goals. But we're pivoting, and, you know, I'd say thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would open this up to public comment.
Try to say something.
Oh, please. Yes, Dr. Marston, I am very sorry.
So I just want to thank all of you for the feedback. I think, you know, I'm really fortunate enough to work in a community that supports education, an awesome leadership team, great faculty and teachers and staff. It's really a pleasure to work here, and I know that we have a lot more to do, and certainly I can always improve, and your feedback is really valuable, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so now I will open this up to public input. If anybody would like to comment on the evaluation, we have 3 minutes. Approach the podium. No, no. Okay. All right, so the next item on the agenda is,
Oh,
you
sorry.
added no,
Safe trip.
you added a couple of things since I put my own agenda together. So the Massachusetts DECA States trip.
Right, so I would just, in your materials, you have a letter from Robert and from Mrs. Schaefer. They are going to the States for DECA, and DECA is a wonderful program that Mrs. Schaefer has started for our kids. Very, very popular. It's business oriented, entrepreneurial oriented, and our kids are really excelling at it and doing well. So this is exciting time for them. It's an in-state trip, so it's not out of state, which is typically what we bring to the committee. But we thought, you know, given the time, it would make sense for us to bring it here and have you give it its blessing. Mrs. Hagan and Mrs. Schaefer will be on the overnight, and we're just excited for our kids this opportunity. It's really cool. It's in Boston, so it's not a far trip for anyone. But I just ask you to approve it as it was presented in the materials.
Why do we even need me here? Can I take a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. The motion is approved,
Thank
and please, Becca, have a great time. So now these schools equipment surplus.
Want me to do that, Michael? Or? Okay, thank you. All right. So in your materials, is a letter from Michael, memo to me, looking at school equipment surplus. So these are all equipment that we have that are not working. They're just taking up space. And the DPW has a program where they work with a third-party vendor that takes these any of their stuff to an auction. They auction it, and then whatever money comes back, the school district, or in their case, DPW gets money, and then the auctioneer takes a portion of that. So in the memo, Michael had listed the following items no longer in working edition. I'd like to ask the school committee to declare these items as surplus in accordance with Mass General Law. So the items are listed, and again, very old machines that aren't being used. They're actually in storage containers right now, taking up space. And, this was a conversation with the town that made sense for us to go in this direction and certainly get some revenue that comes back to the school. So.
Do I hear a motion to approve the disposal of surplus?
You declare it surplus.
Declare it surplus, thank you.
moved.
As Leo, are you going to let me
Yes.
get my words out? Thank you. As outlined by Dr. Marston. So moved.
Second.
There you go. Megan gets it. You get the second. May I hear, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Motion passes unanimously, and the next thing we're on to is we need to talk about a additional meeting on March 24th. I think that in the spring, especially during budget season, and with the number of different things that are coming up, trying to have one meeting in March is probably a little too ambitious. So I know that at the last meeting we discussed March 24th as a night that we could add an additional meeting. Are you all in favor? Are you in agreement? Do you want to discuss that? No? Okay. Then do I hear a motion to approve or add a add a meeting to the calendar for the 24th of March?
So moved.
So moved. Tim, you've been very quiet. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Megan?
Leo keeps jumping the gun.
Yeah, I know. Well, he went to Starbucks. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Megan, did you aye?
Yep. Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. We will see you here on the 24th as well. And then, do we have any other items since posting on
We
February
do not,
8th?
Madam Chair.
No, I do not. So the next thing is, shall we look at the school calendar?
So there's a revised second draft in your materials. We looked at those days that you had some questions on in October. So one of the things I'd like to suggest, and you don't have to vote on it tonight if we can't come to an agreement, you want to send us back and fix this, but the leadership team and I looked at this. And I had forgotten that the reason why the October 7th day was put there as a release day is because that's when the high school is scheduling their pep rally that day. So they're trying to organize it around a half day versus trying to take kids out of instructional time in a different day. And we feel like the weather is pretty good at that point in October, as opposed to having it either in the spring or later. We typically have it before Thanksgiving. So that was the reasoning for that. So I would suggest that just to offer it, we're doing it outside from now on, that's why the weather's, we did it outside this year, and we're gonna continue to do it outside because it was really great for the kids.
Yeah.
So I would offer that you would consider the October 7th day to be a secondary only release day. And then the 31st to be an elementary only release day. So similar to what we did in May, doing that in October. And if you don't think that's a great idea, we can take that back and you can vote it in March. We'll make some adjustments, but we'd just like to hear some feedback on that. So we've never done the split ones, only for conferences for teachers for elementary.
I think it's, personally, I don't want to get too much into the weeds. I mean, if your staff believes that that's something that will work, that's in the best interest of kids, in the best interest of their professional development, what the worst thing that'll happen is that, we'll get emails saying people are really unhappy about that and we won't do it again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that, do we have other comments about that, or? I'm not saying anything definitively, it's just that it's kind of.
So I
off
think
the
with the
top.
PD that we can't, so what it does, it limits PD that we can't do anything district-wide, which is okay because a lot of our PD is 6 through 12 and K to 5 anyway, pre-K to 5. So that's not a huge issue, but it does limit what we can do on those particular days.
Didn't you say that the elementary teachers had asked for that half day on Halloween though?
They have.
Okay, so that seems to make sense, then if they ask for it on Halloween and then the high school needs it for the pep rally,
Right.
then it is what it is, right?
If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, well, then, you
Doesn't,
know,
we don't do it again.
we don't do it again.
Yeah.
Okay, we can be flexible. Yeah, other than that, does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts about the calendar? Or do we feel as though we could bring this to a vote?
Well, I know why they exist, but I always get a lot of comments about the number of half days. That's just something that I know that in order to fit the PD time in, they have to do it.
Right.
So
And the other thing is if we took them as full days, then we would end up
Yeah,
pushing kids further and further into June, which is kind of a miserable month in
Yeah.
non-air conditioned buildings.
I mean, I know it's inconvenient for families, and I do remind people, I think, Leo, you've been in a district that has them every week, right? I mean, there are some districts that still have them every single week.
Yeah.
And for us, it's just really important time for our teachers to work together, work on curriculum, et cetera. So I think there's a value to that, and we accomplish a lot during those days, but we do recognize the fact that it does provide an inconvenience sometimes for families.
And we have in the past talked about whether we would just institute a regular half-day, but it doesn't seem to be the thing that people are really invested in.
Yeah, the hard thing about that is, well, the high school has a rotating schedule now, but the other schools really base it on the day. So kids would miss the same thing all the time, so we didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's why we try to rotate it around as much as we can.
Yep.
But, I'm happy to bring it back if you're not happy with it, and we can look at it again, but, because the questions we get now really this time of year is when the last day of school, because folks are planning their summer
Right.
plan
Right.
and that kind of thing.
Or, yeah,
So they want to know it a year in advance, when they're going away or whatever. So that's pretty much set with this. It wouldn't really change the number of days and when we would end, but
Yeah.
happy to do that, whatever you folks want.
I personally don't feel the need to noodle over this much more. I mean, this is your team and and we've given our input to the best of our ability, but honestly, this is about teaching and kind of the flow of the year. So would anybody be comfortable making a motion to accept the school calendar for the 2022-23 school year as written, as presented?
So moved.
All right, Tim, so moved. Do I hear a second?
Okay.
All right, second, Megan Glenn, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. It passes unanimously,
Thank you.
and that will be our school calendar. Okay, so the next thing that we need to talk about, folks, it is getting late, and there is some feedback on some of these policies. Would we, and knowing that we have another,
Workshop.
meeting, well, we have a workshop tomorrow and we have another meeting in March. Would we consider postponing and discussing some of the policies that we have had some feedback on the first reading?
Sure.
And incorporating that tomorrow? So perhaps we just postpone the whole agenda item and come back to it with kind of a little more tightened up process. Would that work for you guys?
Works for me.
I support.
Okay.
Can I ask one clarifying?
Yes, please,
I
sir.
think, at least in the materials, the second reading, we now are incorporating red lines.
Yes.
Am I reading that correct?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, so
We'll
I
do
think
that. I
that's-
think that we
yeah.
tried an experiment and then it didn't quite work.
Yeah, I was.
This is one of those things school committees do exactly once. So, and there's really no precedent around how you do it. So you end up kind of trying to figure out the best way to efficiently find through about 400 policies,
Give or take, yeah.
give or take. And it's not easy, but I think we're starting to find our feet, but if there are more efficient ways that we can do this, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I was really happy to see
Yeah.
that's in there, and I think that's appropriate to sit on it just now that we've actually have it with that, and it's in the materials for everybody. I think that's good.
Megan, are you okay with that? You think that would be all right? Okay. And Leo, okay, so we will postpone that. And postpone voting on the B policies that we had for the second reading for tonight. And we'll go back and work with those tomorrow at our workshop. Okay, so then we are looking at the update on workshop planning with the Board of Selectmen. And that's me. So We are looking for a date. I know Megan gave me some dates after you did.
Mhm.
I swear.
No, I know. Didn't you ask everybody to do that?
I did.
Okay.
But I didn't hear from everybody else. So I spoke to Chairman Marcucci, and we did agree that a workshop, the selectmen are on board also with doing a workshop, hopefully the week after February vacation. It would need to be in the evening. And that this workshop would really focus on, discussing these two particular issues, because I think so often we do the committee kind of presentational thing, but it's very difficult to really make those kind of nitty-gritty decisions when you're kind of working your way through, Robert's rules and process and calling, and, so we thought it would be a good idea, and I think the selectmen thought it would be a good idea to have that workshop to kind of work through those details. So I need to know what day you guys are able to, or what evening you're able to do. The second, I believe, is out because they have
That's a Tuesday, right? They have a
Yeah.
meeting on Tuesday.
They have a meeting on Tuesday, and because Mike is wrapping up not only his chairmanship, but his tenure as a member of the select board, those meetings are pretty stacked for them, so they didn't want to do it beforehand that evening. And Megan, you had a couple of dates that you could do. If you want to get back to me with them, I'll just propose them then to, if you have any openings, you guys, if you want to take a look at your calendars.
I'm looking at my calendar.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if I missed proposed dates.
Don't worry about it. I mean, I
Are
think
we
so.
talking the second, we said Wednesday?
All right, so actually their meeting is, I'm sorry, on March 1st. I have, Dr. Marsden and I have, and Anna Mae have union negotiations on the 2nd, or at least we have them scheduled up
Yeah.
until 6:30. So we could do 7, but I don't want to speak for Dr. Marsden. I don't know what your schedule's like, yeah. And I don't know if they'll, I feel like there's a warrant committee meeting that night or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's the other thing, is that it's a little tough with that. But, and Megan, you said you could do the 2nd or the
second or the third.
2nd or the 3rd, okay. What do you guys look like? Anybody traveling, anybody?
It's supposed to be, but I think I can make it work.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm flexible.
Okay, so why don't I propose the 2nd or the 3rd, starting at 7?
Yeah, if the third works better for you guys. Leave with that one.
The 3rd's a Thursday. And actually, we could start a little earlier if the selectmen are able to do that on the 3rd. It's just the negotiations part that pushes me back. So I'll propose that to Christine, and she can kind of see if that works, and if it doesn't, we'll probably have to push it into the next week. And we'll go from there. Okay, great. I think that this will be a great opportunity. There's some nice, good communication. So then we are on to, oh my goodness, donations. Dr. Marson, let's talk to us about donations.
Sure, thank you. I asked you to approve the following donations: $43.40 to the Blake Middle School gift account from Box Tops for Education, $184 to Dale Street gift account from Box Tops for Education, and $400 to the Dale Street gift account from Dale Street PTO.
I hear a motion to accept those donations as read and presented by Dr. Marson.
So moved.
So moved, Leo.
Second.
Second, Megan, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. And we are at the point of our evening where we're kind of at the winding down part. For informational items, Dr. Marston, do you have anything on informational items?
I just have one item, one update. I know that this committee has talked about standard-based reporting at Lake, and just want to give you an update on what they're doing. The teachers have been working with, actually, the teachers have been working with Nat and Christine have been part of that as well. And we have a consultant from Boston College who is going to be Nathaniel Brown, who'll be working with our teachers in that as well, as they go from straight SBR to transitioning into looking at grades at the 3rd trimester and looking at plus and minus grades as well and doing that whole process. So Nathaniel is an expert in this area and he feels like he can do a really good algorithm that will allow teachers to still assess with SBR, but apply transfer that into a grade.
Mhm.
So that's what they're working on right now, and they'll be in place for the end of the.
So the SBR itself really kind of elucidates what that grade means, but it's not a direct translation.
So it's more of a tweak of SBR, and it allows them to really have a transition it into a grade, so it's not just a 3, 2, 1 or
Right.
1, 2,
Right.
3, 4. There's a way to do that, and that's what he's working with the staff. So they'll be working next week, and then, you know, in the coming weeks as well, supporting them and giving them the help that they need on that.
Okay. Anybody else on the committee have informational items, anything that they would like to present or talk about? Carrie, it's your time to shine, although you gave us some great input on masking. Anything else you want to add? Or? No? Okay.
Carrie, I may ask, I mean, so far, the only thing I came up with, your choice is cool.
Yeah.
Now,
No, I like that.
those have told me I'm not the most creative,
Yeah.
right? I'm good in math and science, but please come up with something better.
Any choices are cool.
Somebody said, respect rules. I heard that. That's, I mean,
Respect rules.
and that, yeah, well, yeah, that.
Yeah,
Your choice is,
that's such a
come up
tad
with
thing.
something
Yeah,
that's a theme, because I do think
Put on a
it's an
sweater.
important-
If you
It's
name
not
something
cool.
as cool, it's not cool.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
I-
That's the input I need. Right, right.
Am I
We're,
wrong about that?
No, it's okay. You can say it, Carrie. It's all right.
it's a better word than cool.
You do need to slow.
Groovy.
That's what it's, you
Wait,
just
hold
like
on.
dated yourself.
Okay.
No, I just said I think you would do your slogan. Like I think that'd be a good idea.
It is a good idea. We like to make fun of it.
Contest.
So Megan's coming up groovy. Cool.
All right. Bring it back together, kids. Anyone else? No one? None? Okay. I do have one thing which I mentioned to Elizabeth, but I did meet with Mary Hayes and Kathy McDonald, and I've invited them to come speak at the next meeting and speak about really kind of what Mary's role is, and we were gonna perhaps. bring
That's
them back.
Mary, right.
I don't understand this. It's gotta be a Pennsylvania thing or it's a Taunton thing, but I think that the word Mary, M-E-R-I, and
We had this conversation this week.
M-A-R-Y
I
are
thought
the
you were talking
same
about Mary, and I'm like, what do you
thing.
mean Mary?
Well, what's her name? What's substance use lady's name?
Mary.
Mary, as
Mary.
opposed to,
Mary. That's
I don't-
Mary. and
Oh,
her name
I
is
hear no
Mary.
difference, by the way.
no, this is something really.
We both answer to anything, don't worry.
It's like my name is Megan.
In any case, and I wanted to talk about kind of the brain health and substance prevention initiatives that are happening at Medfield Outreach and how we're also able to kind of reach those into the community as well as into the school. So, and we'll have the health advisory committee at that meeting anyway, right? Is that
That's the
true?
plan.
Okay? So if that happens, that might be a really nice synergy.
Back-to-back meetings for you. Kat.
Bing, bang, boom. Come on, you'd miss us. All right, so future agenda items. Moving over here. No, I just, okay, so the health advisory update, we talked on March 10th, DECA COVID-19 guidance. Wait. I guess there will be some guidance, but we won't have to talk about it
There
as
could be
much.
additional guidance that comes out.
Yeah, and then we'll just do policy manual updates ongoing. Okay. Our next meeting is a policy workshop tomorrow at 9:30 at Town Hall. And then our next regular meeting will be on March 10th, 2022. So don't hop on this, Leo. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Megan, all right, and do I hear a second?
Second, Tim Knight.
Tim Knight, all right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye, okay, the motion passes and the meeting is adjourned at, I can't tell because my glasses are on. 8:52, all right. Thank you so much, all of you who hung in with us. Thank you,